Doechii is unfortunately the biggest industry plant of 2025.
What's up, Doechii? Hey, girl.
After what feels like has been the Cinderella run of the year, there are many who are criticizing or questioning the rise of Doechii. So I took it upon myself to investigate that matter personally. And what I found definitely made one thing clear. But let me explain.
Freaky little, sneaky little, creepy little rat.
The date is February 2nd, 2025, and we're in the middle of LA for what is supposed to be just another Grammy ceremony. However, as the night continues, it is clear to everyone watching that what they're really watching is the birth of a new star.
I mean, what? I like pills, I like drugs, I like getting money, I like strippers, I like...
Capitalizing on the moment that she had built up towards the end of 2024, Doechii used the platform she had earned to light the world on fire. That same artist that was stealing the show had only managed to sell 10,000 copies of her most recent project. Furthermore, a project that seemed destined to be forgotten, dead on arrival as some may say. However, Alligator Bites Never Heal was the same record that fetched Doechii a Grammy on that same night. It was something so magical that it made people wonder, how is this possible? And honestly, I believe that to understand how this happened, you gotta understand who Doechii is as a person and the career that she has built up over the last decade.
Who are you?
Doechii.
From Tampa. Remember we talking about artists from Tampa?
Florida.
The story of Doechii is one that originated back in Tampa, Florida, where young Jayla Hickman was born. However, Jayla's journey to find the Doechii within was one that wouldn't come through until she was in 6th grade, where a young Jayla, feeling tired of the constant bullying and harassment, found an alternative ego in the way of Doechii, an alternative identity that helped her become the person that she is today, something that allowed her to be her truest self in the loudest way possible. For Doechii, her stage name isn't just a name, it's a part of who she is as a person and how she sees herself in life. However, Doechii's journey in music would take her on a wild 10-year journey that would see her ups, downs, and everything in between. And it all started where everything in music seems to start at, with 2016. Given that Doechii didn't have any industry backing at this point, she would start her career on SoundCloud, as most rappers were back in the day. However, in a sea of overnight success stories, Doechii was one of those artists who failed to make an impact on the big stage at first. And to be fair, I get why Doechii didn't blow up initially. Not saying she was bad necessarily, but you know, her songs definitely needed work. Maybe some more redefining, some more practice, some more, you know, time. And by the end of the 2010s, honestly, Doechii had failed to really make a mark on the music industry. Most of her notoriety, or fame if you want to call it that, came actually from her YouTube channel. She would post vlogs, tutorials, story times, and just showcase Doechii at her most Doechii. And up to this point, if Doechii had given up, she would have been just another artist that had given up. Which doesn't sound like very industry plant of her, but I guess when people are referring to her being an industry plant, they're talking about what would happen years in the future. But before we get into that, I would appreciate if you guys would subscribe to the channel. I have been taking some days off, but now I'm back. So I would appreciate if we can get to, I don't know, 51,000. It seems like a very reasonable goal. We're only like 300 subs away, so if you want to join the club, you can join the club. But with that being said, let's get right into the video. The mark of a new decade meant a lot, not just to Doechii, but the world as a whole, as COVID would take over everything and essentially force a lockdown. This lockdown changed every aspect of the entertainment industry, but as it relates to music, it made TikTok that much more powerful. And though sure, TikTok music has its negatives, I think one of the best things about TikTok music is the fact that new artists get to break out. And a good example of that would be none other than Doechii.
Doechii, why don't you introduce yourself?
After years of putting out music to what would be like a couple thousand people, Doechii would find a hit in the way of Jucky Blucky Freestyle. This is future Benny to chime in here. It is not freestyle, it's actually fruitcake. I just had a big like meltdown brain-wise, I guess. But yeah, it's Jucky Blucky Fruitcake. Despite the hard to pronounce song title, this is the song that broke Doechii into a different level of fame, as the song would get picked up by the TikTok algorithm and it would never look back.
Hi, my name's Doechii with 2 eyes. I feel anxious when I'm high.
For Doechii, this was her first song to accumulate millions of streams, and at the same time, it was also the first song to ever receive the necessary blessing that is playlisting, and landing here on all types of digital charts. It wasn't necessarily the biggest hit of all time, but it was big enough for Doechii to pick up some buzz. So there you have it. She had the backing of the industry, and clearly that meant that she was an industry plant, right? Well, not exactly. Despite the success of Jucky Blucky Freestyle, Doechii wasn't necessarily a major name in the hip-hop game. In fact, for the rest of 2021, Doechii wasn't even signed. She wouldn't even get a follow-up hit. In many ways, Doechii's career was looking like one of those artists that would blow up on TikTok and then get forgotten about. However, what you'll learn about the Doechii story is that it's not about the overnight success, it's about the steps that it takes to get there. Like, sure, she didn't get signed in 2021, but by 2022, she would be signed on to TDE. And sure, TDE isn't the biggest label, but because they're smaller, they can focus more on their individual artists. And sure, she didn't have a follow-up hit in 2021, but as of 2022, she would be featured on the Double XL freshman list. And look back at that list, Doechii wasn't the most popular name going into that, but she definitely is now. Additionally, at the turn of the calendar, Doechii would begin touring alongside Ice Spice and Doja Cat. And again, these steps to success weren't necessarily indicative of Doechii being an overnight success or something that the industry got behind and pushed to the top. These are steps. And in fact, the name Doechii wouldn't even hit the Billboard Hot 100 until a year later in May of 2023 by the way of What It Is.
What it is, ho, what's up?
Like, it wasn't that Doechii was the biggest rapper heading into 2024, she had a lot of buzz going into it, or hype or whatever, but she was definitely a name in hip-hop, right? The type that you would expect to have a solid fan base going into the rollout of a project. And as we headed into the rollout for her next project, Alligator Bites Never Heal, it definitely felt as though Doechii was up for like the biggest week of her life. So you can imagine the disappointment that there was when that record only managed to sell 10,000 copies first week. Like, to give her credit, Doechii isn't the biggest rapper of all time, but 10K is really low for someone of Doechii's popularity. Like, for the wrong artist, this could be a career killer. But this is where Doechii's 10-year journey pans out. Because up to this point of her career, and not just her career, but life, Doechii has had to repeatedly not give up. Sure, this record only sold a couple thousand copies, but Doechii has been releasing music to a couple thousand people for years. And I think what really made Doechii stand out in terms of flopping is that rather than just forget about the flop and move on to the next one, Doechii was very confident in the quality of this record. She would continue to push this record, and after a little assist from featuring on Tyler the Creator's Chromacopia, Doechii's record was picking up a lot of momentum. And rather than just letting things work themselves out, Doechii was very active.
Remember old dude from 2019? Nice clean nigga did me dirtier than laundry.
Once the Nile is a River started picking up traction on TikTok, Doechii went on Genius to do the little explain thing. Then she went on Tiny Desk and performed it. Then she went on Genius to do a live performance with Issa Rae while also rolling out this fucking skit for a video, all leading up to a music video that would release 2 months ago, and it has already amassed more than 40 million views. And rather than just be complacent and leave it at that, she would also perform it on her biggest stage at the Grammys. And all of a sudden, this record that was a flop became hip-hop's record of the year according to the Grammys. And for as much as we say that the Grammys don't mean anything, they do mean something. And listen, if you want to call Doechii an industry plant, sure, go ahead. Call her an industry plant, but the reality is that Doechii's career is more indicative of someone that continued to work hard rather than someone that got an industry push overnight. Like, think about how her career started 10 years ago on SoundCloud and how many SoundCloud people are still around. Whether Doechii has the support of the industry or not is irrelevant, because at the end of the day, she has something that matters even more. She has the support of the people, and that's what matters. Anyways, this is my anti-procrastination video, and with that being said, shout out to y'all. Shout out to me. Shout out to God. Shout out to Doechii. Hey, is Doechii single? Anyway, shout out to shout out and yeah, just roll the outro at this point. Oh yeah, shout out to Dilla.